She is competitive with everything. Like I said, I'm going through hell on earth. I've lost everything. I confide in her. I let her know that life has slapped me upside the head. People have betrayed me. And from the very onset, you could tell that she's sizing me up. You could tell that she's feeling herself in the sense that, listen, I'm above you. You're struggling, and I'm not. I'm better. Unless she was so humble. There was a competitiveness in her. I was yet to be married, and I was speaking about the things of God, and I was sharing my sorrow. And this woman could do nothing but tell me about what she's doing, what she's done, how impressive her life is. And I remember just thinking, I'm going through hell, girl. Like, listen, I'm glad for everything you're experiencing, but I'm going through. She was competing. She was speaking with me in a tone so as to say, I've got this, what do you have? When I had told her I lost everything. What is going on? You were never like this. Ultimately, I started on Instagram because I tried to grow in all different kinds of platforms and nothing came. I finally got on Instagram. Eventually, she decides to, after a great deal of reluctance, she follows me on Instagram and I follow her back. Of course, she's my friend, so I go into her Instagram. Now, Facebook are the early days, right? Facebook is like millennials Insta. It's millennials Instagram. On Facebook, her boyfriend was all over. Her boyfriend is now her husband. I go on Instagram. This chick was the kind to post family, friends, like her whole life, and her Facebook was littered with her boyfriend, just like mine was littered with my boyfriend. On Instagram, yo guys, listen, her Instagram had lots and lots of photos. Every so often she posted her one child and her husband. I promise you right now, nothing. I know that she married the guy that she was dating, but he was nowhere to be found on her Instagram. Nowhere? Are you serious? This is your husband, and he was nowhere to be found on her Instagram. And I was like, how do you have your boyfriend littered on Facebook? And then when Instagram gets introduced and it gets innovated in the world, and people now move all their photographs to Instagram, how do you not have him there? And now you're married. Now you're married, more so. Now, ought you then be showing us all of your photographs on Instagram? No, they got married, and then next thing, things went awry clearly. And now she's just fronting as a married woman, but she is unhappy. She got married and then something changed in this guy, clearly. Because now she is in rebellion. Now she's in rebellion to him. Now she is basically saying, like, I remember I spoke about the other woman, that she was in rebellion against her husband to a point of saying, I'm not going to post you either on my socials because you don't post me on yours. Or you're not going to get to treat me like this at home and then have me litter your behind all over my Insta. Well, their passive aggression is expanded in how it is that they represent their family, their married life on social media. All of a sudden, it goes dark, like the dark web. It goes ghost, like a dude not responding to your DM after you exchange pleasantries on not TikTok, but what's this, on WhatsApp. Yo, it just goes dark. And what makes women suddenly go dark and not want to share men is a bitterness. A bitterness, like something in them that's like, I'm not going to act like an obsessed teenage girl over some high school jock, over a man that's not that is determined, like that is not willing to love me. But this guy was a doting boyfriend, it appears. He was happy. Or maybe just like with my case, perhaps she was lying about her relationship and still continuing to post a guy that she had high hopes for. He did marry her. And when then you're married, you no longer want to keep up the facade. When you're married, you don't want to keep up the pretenses that you like this guy. Now you're just irritated and you also feel trapped. That we're married now and you're still acting a fool. Yo, if you don't love your wives, they don't love their children. What was with the one little photograph of a baby on Instagram? And what was with the no representation of a husband? But you're a married woman. If at all people came into your Instagram for the first time, they would think that you're a single mother that is not married. But you're a whole wife with from what I see now, with a child. One like son. Yeah. What in the world happened over there? I cannot tell you, but from the litany of crazy guys that now want to make out of me a second wife, I can see what's going on over there. They mess up and they cause women bitterness. These women then end up emasculating them, and then they feel as if they can just come and marry Karabo. These women, these men that marry these women that refuse to love them, now want to come and marry me. They want to make me a second wife. My dad, after wreaking havoc in my mom's life, went and took a second wife. And I keep on seeing in my dreams and in my vision space, me being like my dad's second wife. She was like a peacock poised on a rooftop, like basically prancing herself above my mom when my dad initially married her. According to my mother, apparently my dad was cheating on her with her when they were still together. So basically my dad married the side piece, the mistress. And in the beginning, she was very arrogant. Very, very arrogant. In the beginning, this Makwa Penny was very arrogant that she got the man that basically she was messing with while he was with my mom. But in the end, she was my mom again. They divorced. He was a deadbeat husband. Like, he was to her too, he was insufferable even to her. So all these women that think that somehow it's different with you, where some other dude out treated, whereas some other woman was the one that dropped the ball, until you endure an unloving man like that has wreaked havoc in some other woman's life before, you will literally pass shade to the woman that is his first, that is his main, that is his first, but that is the first one to give him children. You will pass her shade. My ex-boyfriend, he had there was some chick that he kept on cheating on me with, that he now today married, and the Lord showed me when they got married that she prided herself in the fact that I didn't even have to work that hard and you put a ring on my finger. And now today she's frustrated by the very same things that never mind I was frustrated with, but worse. You're hung up on a woman and because of that you're not giving me love. And now there is a bitterness therein. Women don't learn these lessons until they get much older. Well, I am much older now, but I've never been married. I'm a spinster, essentially. And this spinster, this 41-year-old spinster, is not desperate. I'm not gonna have a child just because biological clock is ticking, and I'm concerned that if I don't have a baby, I'll never have a baby. Given that I want a baby, I understand how much I would potentially not love children. A baby, if my baby daddy is all wrong, because I've seen women long for children and later on despise those children because of not getting love. And this here as a spiritual root. So as a spinster, this here is my last video on this channel, because women, I can't stand your husbands. They're all up in my grill. And you hate me for the fact that I want nothing to do with them. They want to make me a second wife. Some of them want to make me a side piece. The very things that have made you exsanguinate them from your social media. The very thing that has made you rebel against putting them on your social media. The very thing that has also made you unable to properly love your children. They're chasing me around a maze, a labyrinth, trying to force me to come into their space because they pick up on the street that which does not belong to them because they trust. Just like I started in the beginning stages of this conversation, that no one is coming for the black child. And so the black child becomes the black woman. The black child becomes the black man. That black boy that was ignored until the age of 11 with blindness, without being able to see, needed glasses, becomes a black man that had that level of neglect, albeit growing up in a family of means, enough to take him to a private school. And yet all the way up until the age of 11, listen, nobody knew that this boy had an eye issue. That's a black boy that becomes a black man. And the black girl that procures her school uniforms underhandedly by banditry in Lost and Found becomes a black woman. And that black boy becomes the black husband of that black woman. And having not been trained how to love, and having not been determined to intentionally love, then frustrates a woman by being cold, aloof, and acquiring pleasure, nothing but hedonism. If at all you don't know what love is from your parents, if you don't know what love is from your community, if you don't know that people screaming on the side of the street ought warrant a bunch of brave men to go and check what the scream is about to stop the screams from happening, that crime might be staved, if at all you don't know that guns going off warrant calling the emergency responders so that they can go find out what the gun disturbance is about, but instead you just keep on listening to papa in your neighborhood and not even try to intervene. If at all you grew up in a community so full of crime that when somebody dies it's just some story because there's so very many of us black people enduring all this violence, that seeing as it's not all of us, I guess I'm glad it's not my kids. If at all you keep on growing up going to Durban Beach by yourself as an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old respectively, while some people steal your towels and all of your money, and then you get dropped off by the police to be cold in swimwear outside of your mother's best friend's house. If at all that is all that you know, and you don't intentionally try to basically not be that kind of a parent, if you don't try to change in yourself who you were raised to be, inevitably basically be a grain, be your mother's daughter, be your father's daughter, be your mother's son, be your father's son, be your grandmother's grandchild, if you don't intentionally try to exsanguinate a lack of love and just an unreasonable way of dealing with children, and if you don't divorce yourself from people not caring about the black kid, because listen, the way that the black kid is so completely ignored. There was a survey, a study done, where it is that a black child was put in a public square alone. Just like this kid was five. It was an experiment. They told this child stand there. This child was of course carefully monitored, carefully surveilled. She was gazed upon. She was looked after. The people that were taking care of this child were in close proximity to her, but they looked aloof, like they don't know her. So nobody could have just grabbed that kid and gotten away with it. They did not just leave that child there. Yeah, it was a social experiment, is what I'm getting at. Her caretakers were in close proximity to her on a street corner. It's not like they were looking from a distance through cameras or whatever. And this little girl was made to stand in a public square bustling with activity all by herself. She was clean. She was wearing clean clothes. She didn't look like a hobo, a street kid, nothing. And she just stood there. And 5 minutes progressed. Black people, white people, Indian people, colored people, Chinese people, everybody in that city square, just up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. They just walked right by this kid. Until after 45 whole whopping minutes later, a black woman walked up to this child and was like, "Hi, little girl, where are your parents?" 45 minutes. This black kid was left there for 45 minutes until a black woman was like, "Oh my goodness, like, why are you here alone? You're 5. Like, where are your caretakers?" At which stage, of course, the people that were encircling this kid looking aloof were like, "No, we got this. Don't worry, man. She's ours." They did the same thing with a white girl. They just placed her there, same age, also clean, doesn't look like a hobo, nothing. And she was just standing there in this public square. And within just mere moments, as soon as the camera started rolling, essentially, within mere moments, people walked up to this child. "Little girl, where's your parents? Where's your mom? Where's your dad? Why are you here alone?" Of all different races. Black, white, Indian people, like every race, like the multiple iterations, multiple recordings of this experiment happened. The black girl, there was not even enough, what do you call this, iterations necessary to do. Because the one instance, she just waited there for 45 minutes before anybody asked. Whereas with the white girl, as soon as Njefela, they placed her there all by herself, somebody would ask, and then they would do a retake. Somebody would ask, do a retake. Somebody would ask. Each and every single time, this little girl, somebody asked, where are your parents? That white child has no grasp or concept of these biases in society to understand what just happened there, so it's not her fault. Neither is it the fault of white people that is an issue. It is the errors that have afflicted us as people, as the human race in total, that have contributed to this biased or skewed way of looking at things in society are literally nobody's fault in 2025. We have histories, all of us, that have contributed to why people look at black girls and black boys like this versus white boys and white girls. It is nobody's fault that the black girl is ignored, except for the history that has made us accommodate that this here is an okay behavior. If you as a black person do not start to intentionally work on being afflicted by the neglected state of your fellow people, everybody else will catch up. Listen, everybody else will catch up. It is true that charity begins at home. But if as a black woman you are yet to be in a culture shift or a culture change, when people will realize the inappropriateness of a 5-year-old just being left in a city square, like the way that they're just littered around downtown Joburg, until culture changes, it'll always be normal for black children to be traveling under the age of 10 alone in downtown Johannesburg. It'll always be normal. It'll never be frowned upon until it starts to become clear that it's inappropriate. It'll always, and also for as long as black people in and of themselves, seeing as charity begins at home, do not eradicate the abandoned black girl and expect everybody else to have their back. Society, thanks to their biases, ignore black people, but there's enough black people to make sure that the ignoring of black people does not kill black people until everybody else catches up and stops ignoring black people. But you see, black people, the way that you so don't care about yourselves, the way that you have so dumped yourselves in a bin, and the way that you are so defensive when called out for this activity, everybody else imagines that you are like dry ice, cold and hot to the touch. So essentially just don't touch it. You burn people. When you are corrected, when you are called out, when people highlight issues, you don't want to even deal with it. You have this mindset that, listen, you're not going to tell me how to raise my kids. You're not going to this, you're not going to that. But what makes you think that black kids are okay with being diagnosed with an eye issue at only 11? When all this time they couldn't see, everybody just thought they were dumb. What makes you think black kids are okay with being robbed or freezing in swimwear, waiting for parents to come home after being dropped off by police that tell themselves, listen, you'll be fine? What makes you think black kids are okay with being put in buses that travel to another province over 8 hours and then picked up by a relative? And when then we get robbed at the beach, have everybody make a joke about it at dinner? What makes you think that black kids are okay with procuring through banditry their own school uniform at Lost and Found because you would not buy them new shoes? Oh, did I tell you that another thing that I got from Lost and Found was shoes? Remember I had those tongue shoes that were torn? That was actually my biggest motivation to go to Lost and Found. More even than my Mohodu jersey. I took some other child's shoes that fit this time properly. What makes you think that black kids are okay to keep on wearing other people's shoes because my mom wouldn't buy them? Like, just the level of street smarts that we have to have is unfair. It's just wrong. Just the fact that you have to be so frugal, never mind frugal, but just like savvy, yo. You have to be industrious. As a black person, just know how to get through when nobody else cares that you should. The guy in America slid into my life upon realizing that much, frankly, is not in my life. That was the reason why he thought that it was safe for him to come into my space. I told, this man knows my history. He had access to my Facebook, saw my photos, saw how I grew up, basically gazed at my socioeconomic situation. Understand his rap sheet. He was a man that grew up in the darkest and most dingiest parts of California of America. He was a gangster in those streets. As in, a gangster, like for real. Like a criminal. Peddled drugs. From the time he was 15, he was in juvenile detention for drugs. That's the kind of life that this guy lived. Was in and out of jail, had a history of wife beating, girlfriend beating, had his first child at 19. I think he had his first child at 19 with a girl that was, I believe, also 19 or 18 or whatever. Decided to marry her because of the fact that she was pregnant. Not so much because he loved her. Gave her grief, used to beat her up, they broke up. Listen, this guy shared these things with me because apparently all I knew in Christ, but he never ever was born again. Now spent a whole chunk of time in the American prison system. Got set free eventually, out of jail, after his last stint over there, having married his second wife, and during that relationship, found himself in prison again, having been in prison already for a few months or a few years because of domestic violence. What the heck? Like, you would think, Karabo, what were you doing with that guy? This is this guy's rap sheet, okay? He eventually went to prison once and for all after his woman, the second wife, they talked, and she was like, get your act together so you and I can be nicely married and happy. The way that women are always trying to build men, I told you helper suitable. You will try to build, but a guy will just ignore you. This guy went and got into a scuffle and literally nearly killed someone, and that's why he went to prison again. Attempted murder. He was not getting out this time because of that. This woman, because she was scared of him, did not bother to divorce him. She just went and had her own babies out there because they were supposed to build a family together, not having children. She was already raising his daughter with the first woman, and this guy decided to go to jail, this time for so long that what in the world, like, what, must I never use my ex? So she went and fell pregnant by what this guy was reviling her name. He would say, he said she had babies, like she fell pregnant by 2 different men when I was in jail, and she didn't even come to visit me. She didn't even have a conjugal with me at the time when I was listening to his stories, because from now on your desire will be for your husband, right? You just want love, and because you've been robbed of it, I accommodated this guy because of my sorrow. You're listening to a man out to complain about a woman. But when a woman has basically, when you've gone to prison because of domestic violence, you then get out because this woman drops charges or whatever, and then you talk and you say, fine, get your act together, let's build a family, and then you go and you get yourself sent to jail for, this time perhaps forever, for almost killing some other dude. The dude that he almost killed was his father-in-law, his stepfather-in-law. The guy that was with his mom, because they got into a scuffle and he stabbed the man a couple of times, but the guy lived. So he went to prison for attempted murder. Listen, this is the man that's trying to come in my life. Went to prison for attempted murder, and then, fortunately or unfortunately for me, I don't know how you want to look at this thing, coronavirus hit the earth. And California is I need to go and fetch my pin on the ground. I found my pin. California is a woke state. It's a left state. And at the time, I don't know if is it Governor Newsom or whatever his name is. I don't know if he was the governor at the time. I don't think so, but if he was, then I guess it's very telling. During the coronavirus days, that governor, well, not that governor, but the governor at the time, let go of a whole bunch of prisoners out of American prisons in the spirit of social distancing. He let go of a couple of prisoners out of prison in the interests or the spirit of social distance. And at that time, it was because of the virus that was going around the streets that they did that. Today, don't nobody know what the excuse for letting crimes run rampant in America in left states is, but it's a thing. And they let a whole bunch of prisoners go, and I don't know what their criteria for letting prisoners go was, because really, truly, if you're gonna set free some prisoners in the spirit of social distancing, you would think that you would first let, like, petty criminals go, like those that be out here stealing burgers and then getting caught. Those that maybe even, I don't know, like, yo, you stole a VCR because you're still living in 1995. Maybe those would be the first ones you get rid of. The ones that stole like knickknacks, slap chips from a fish and chip store. You let them go first, right? Because they were not trying to kill anybody. They didn't use any deadly force, no weaponry. Just walked in and like picked a couple of things from Walmart. Maybe you would think those would be the first people you let go of because maybe, you know, he was hungry for the day. How they let go a man that had nearly killed another man, and the only reason that he was not down for murder was because the guy lived. He got taken to hospital and lived. That's the only differentiator between attempted murder and murder. That you try to kill someone but they survived. How you let go of somebody that nearly ended a life in the spirit of social distancing. Could you not find more petty criminals in the Californian prison system? Could you not? In order to lean up the number of men in the jails over there. You know, enough for you to let go of somebody, put somebody on parole that nearly killed a man? Anyway, whatever. When he got out of prison, even his baby mama was shocked. Not baby mama, wife, that was now the baby mama of a new dude, having given some other dude a baby. She went and had 2 children by 2 different men. But when you don't think that your husband is getting out of jail, and when you're too scared to even give him divorce papers of him, when you're too scared of him to even give him divorce papers, when then the governor of your state lets him out of jail, when you're living your life because he's not going to get out for another 25 years, would you not be scared? Would you not be nervous? Would you not be shocked out of your mind that he's now out of jail? Yeah, okay, this guy went and sought a divorce, of course, after that. I don't know if he beat her up first. I don't think so. Maybe her baby daddy would probably like come at him or whatever. But that's this guy's rap sheet. The other day I was watching, I don't know which channel on YouTube, maybe The Watchman, basically speaking about the fall of, is it Minneapolis or Minnesota? Minneapolis or Minnesota in the US. One of those M states. And the one guy, the one dude over there that basically he's like a CEO of the company. He spoke about how it is that he's leaving Minneapolis to move to another state because he's no longer able to just deal with the high crime rates over there, how the state has fallen. They spoke about how property rates are down because of crime. Due to basically, is it a red or a blue state? These states that are crazy. I think it's blue. The Democrats, right? Yeah, out here just liberating criminals or refusing to incarcerate criminals. They spoke about how it is that people report incidents to the police. The police don't come, so now they don't even report incidents anymore. So even the crime statistics reported by their government are not even representative truly of what's going on, because people no longer report crimes. Crimes happen, but nobody reports them anymore because nobody comes. Like medical responders, nobody comes, and crimes just get committed. Property prices are falling, all different kinds of things. And yet that used to be wonderful once upon a time, a state. It used to once upon a time be a very wonderful state, but because of leftist politics and this letting go of criminals just to do their own thing, running rampant in the streets, property prices have fallen. But if you look at all the calamity that has befallen you, and not California, but Minnesota or Minneapolis, one of these states, I stand corrected as which one. I think it might be Minneapolis. Or I don't know, Minnesota. I stand corrected. Okay, yeah. When you look at the at all these things that are happening, listen, black tyranny. It's black tyranny. It's black people refusing to be corrected, and black people insisting on getting away with crimes and murder, and subjugating other black people to the tyranny of no police, no one coming through for anyone screaming in the black community, until all black people are just left, including the ones that, listen, I want police because I want to be able to call the police when there is a crime happening outside of my house, that I might have response. But if black people are saying, leave us alone, and then there are people humoring them, you will have your nation or your city de-gentrified. All the whites will leave, all the Hispanic, any other race will leave, and you will then be left with basically downtown Johannesburg for an entire state. And downtown Johannesburg, like I said, it's violent, people scream on the streets, people gaze at the screaming lady, you then find out that there's a dead body downstairs, nobody does anything, and then black people say, hey, you better take care of yourself now, every man for himself. So now there is basically the laws of governments that insist on giving black people what they want because they are previously oppressed, are creating a culture and a climate of careless treatment of souls on the ground that will reel, writhe, mourn, lament, call the medical responders that don't come until somebody that did not have to die just dies. But now you're insisting on doing that in an entire state. And now there are crazy little white people happy to stand with that nonsense, to decimate their own states until property prices fall, because that's exactly Minneapolis or Minnesota, one of those two. Y'all go Google it yourself. I forgot. Okay, that's exactly what happened in South Africa after apartheid ended. In Yeoville, in Berea, in Parktown, Auckland Park, that area. Previously white areas under Group Areas Act that ought not have been segregated like that. But black people that came into those places, that amidst them were those who refused discipline. Amidst them were those who refused to be basically told, stop littering your streets, do better, like stop this, stop that. Even the white people that weren't racist, that were not trying to move out because black people are moving in, ended up moving out. Why? Because listen, how in the world do black people move in and perfectly habitable townhouses, not townhouses but sectional titles, flats, now are halfway houses, now are crack houses, now are debilitated. You know how old school flats, I've lived in a couple of them, even the ones that my cousin was living in when we were coming up, her family, my uncle and them, huge. Big kitchens, wooden floors, reinforced, like really, really beautiful, big apartment blocks, buildings. But black people, they just decimated it. Glorious structures like Bonde, like just this like marvel of a beautiful architectural masterpiece that, however, is a suicide hub, and it is dirty, unkept, and badly treated by black society that is content to basically defecate where they eat. And where it is that other black people are trying to build and do better, black people will then basically, like I said, defecate where they eat. Others of us destroy. And there appears to be too many black people willing to destroy as opposed to build. Such that if at all, as a black person, it appears, if you're gonna live, you have to be willing to accommodate the fact that for the rest of your life, you're gonna get called a coconut, an Oreo, a McFlurry, whatever heaven you wanna call yourself, that's basically mixed black and white. Because there is no life. There is no life, no love, no care, no reciprocity, no camaraderie in the black community. When they stay in the black community, you will literally rock up on a mission to re-energize your ecosystem, to build back, to bring back, to rebuild your community. And every brick that you lay will be kicked down by some gangster that everybody is too scared to apprehend. And then everybody will tell everybody, protect yourself from the gangster. Are you serious? Protect yourself from the gangster. Listen, have you heard of the Pareto principle? I'll humor you for a minute. The Pareto principle suggests that 80% of the calamity in any given circumstance is caused by 20% of the causes. So you don't get to say, protect yourself from the gangster, when the majority of people are subject to the tyranny of the gangster. Get rid of the gangster. Is that basic? How many black people complain about every time black people move into a neighborhood, buildings get debilitated? How many black people lament that, like, how you gonna go through an Apple core or a Coca-Cola can on the street as you're driving? You finish your code, and instead of waiting to either throw it in your own dustbin Or instead of waiting to throw it, to basically to throw it in a bin at work, or vacuum it, or wait to get to the garage and throw it in a bin at the garage, you literally go and you finish your Coca-Cola, and because you love your car more than you love your country, you can't have that thing muddy in your car, so you just throw it out of a window. There was a time when I was driving on the highway some years ago, and like this dude literally wound down his window and just threw a Coca-Cola can out of the window on the highway. Dude, like that's the kind of stuff that can cause an accident because of some just a goth driver behind you, shocked that you threw a Coca-Cola can out of a window. And then when you gaze at his face, yes, it's a black man. I don't know who you think is going to pick up your litter. Black people. I literally don't know who you think is going to clean the pools in which you urinate. I don't know who you think is going to come and protect the sectional title that has been taken over by pimps in Yeovil that want to run that entire sectional title as a brothel, and so decent families gotta move out. How many pimps in a square meterage worth of a sectional title sort of kind of establishment place? Yeah, how many of them are there in comparison to every family that lives in that sectional title, that wants peace, that wants their children to go to school and come back without being trafficked to be prostitutes? Listen, the pimp tends to be one guy, maybe 20 guys in a sectional title of 1,200 people. It is the fact that even though you are the sheer volumes, you allow a small number of menaces, of nuisances, of monsters, of marauders, of psychopaths to literally decimate your entire country. And because they're carrying guns and you like bravery, you let them rule you with an iron fist without there being any intervention. The Bible says that cowards will not enter the kingdom of God. Outside, in Revelation 22, are the dogs, the cowardly, the sexually immoral, the homosexuals, etc. You don't enter God's rest when you're a coward. It is the very epitome of cowardice when this here street has got 10,000 people living on it and there are like 200 gangsters, and you refuse to apprehend them by the sheer volition of your determination to clean your streets of the monsters so that your daughters can walk safely amidst them. I don't know how many conversations I have had with black people speaking about how black folk, how you gonna out here be moving in to a sectional title. Black folk, how you gonna be out here moving into a neighborhood and it's now no longer recognizable. I don't know how many black people I have heard lament, moan, groan, mourn, basically spit fire about how many times black people like to say, etc. How many times do you keep on lamenting that black people don't want to see black people succeed? If you all have the same apprehension, if you all have the same qualms, either you are just chunky, gargantuan, gnarly hypocrites, because you are the destroyer that you claim to hate, or you are letting destroyers destroy because you're too much of a coward to intervene. But bottom line is this: the very thing that enables black people to survive, I will keep doing it until such time that I am met with an ecosystem or an atmosphere that is prepared to let me live. And if I will be called an Uncle Tom for that, if I will be called a coconut, an Oreo, McFlurry, angas, if I will be called PS chocolate, whatever you want to call me, that has got like a white wafer on the inside, but on the outside I'm all pure black chocolate. Listen, I don't care. Call me what you want, but I just want a life. And seeing as in Christ it is written, seeing as it is written in the Lord Jesus Christ that what is written in God's word, that there is neither Jew nor Gentile, Greek nor Jew, slave nor free, but all are one in Christ. It is of no essence that all my friends should be any other demographic but black. It is of no essence that any of my crew with whom I am in camaraderie are not all sheer black like the panther. Listen, I don't care. I don't care if they're white, black, pink, purple, Indian, Asian, insofar as they'll enable me to live safely and to bear children and to love them and to be loved by them and to love my husband and to be loved by him and to protect family, the institution of marriage, the nuclear family, to raise up societies in so raising up children inside households. Any community that'll let me do that in peace, they're my brother and they're my sister. Listen, Jesus even said that when Mary, his mother, was like, call my son, and then they were like, your mom is calling you. And Christ was like, my mom and my dad and my brother and my sister, etc. They're the ones that follow the commandments of my father. So frankly, any single demographic or any single batch of people, whatever their race might be, that will let me live a peaceful life where I am able to proliferate the ideals of God. I don't care what they look like. They're my fam and they're rational and they understand that it don't make no kind of sense to let children be industrious so much so as to survive like grown men and women. The level of listen, I saw it from when I was still just a child. I saw that there was no love, and I wanted more. I saw it. All this neglect, abandonment, all the my family members have literally just kind of sat around and watched me writhe. They let me turn 40 as a spinster. They're employed, just like it was the case back in the day. Nobody tried to connect me with a job. Nobody tried to help me. Everybody just left me out on a limb. Everybody left me reeling. And as a result of that, and their property prices also plunging. Just a dystopian affair. going on in the black community. And I'm just like, you know what? Keep on plummeting. Property prices everywhere where you live. Keep on hating, rebuke, correction everywhere where you go. But I just want a life, peace at all. Keep on accommodating unloving husbands and men. Keep on not loving your women until they hate other women and until they can't love children. Because there is a root cause to why women are so unmothering to children, and also why women hate other women. Enough to let this travesty be a thing where the very thing that most women fear, if not all, is being left to essentially be a threat around my life. A lingering threat of rape. It's just being left to linger in my life. These women of which, if they were to endure this kind of pursuit on their lives, would in and of themselves cry help. But just like that black kid that is neglected in a city square, left alone at the age of 5, no one would come until after 45 minutes, finally somebody came. I know that black people are neglected and abandoned until they die. But I will, because nobody expects that they're gonna die. Because they're made so strong. We just survive the most excellent feats. Do you understand? I am not gonna be killed in a public square like Hlongwane and have the man that killed me regret that he killed me and tell the world, but I took you out from a family that didn't love you. And then you dared leave me and then also slap me with a restraining order. Who do you think you are? A man that's going to feel entitled to all of your respect because he took you out from a family that ought not have left you out on a limb. The guy in the US, I was busy telling you about that gnarly monster. You see the left in America that is doing this to their country, out here in the interest of recalibrating or retributing sorrow that black people endured under slavery all those gargantuan tons of millennial and making millions of eons ago, back when the mammoth was still doing a thing in the streets. Yeah, all the indiscretions of white supremacy in the days of white supremacy in the US have caused governors in America to let property prices in perfectly viable cities plunge, with a whole bunch of white people moving out of those cities because there are high and heavily doped up vagrants littering streets, living on the streets, having been fed drugs so as to keep them as, I guess, docile as possible. You remember how the Biden administration, in the interest of proliferating health and safety in the body, literally gave out syringes to drug addicts, because rather give them syringes to take drugs safely instead of them, instead of them, what is the word that I am looking for? Sharing needles, and so proliferating diseases like HIV from sharing needles and all the different kinds of pathogens that can come into a bone precisely because of sharing needles. And Joe Biden not only gave these people paraphernalia to take drugs, but in some worst case scenarios even drugs, because in order to get a person off drugs, first and foremost, you need to put them in rehab. They need to be medically assisted to get off drugs, and they also need to be enabled to basically find a home and live in an environment where they can be kept off drugs. And so it costs a lot less money, I guess, to just keep them on drugs safely, rather than house them, rather than basically embark on projects to ascertain that they get off the street, work, contribute to society, and stop being bums. So rather than focus on the rehabilitation of drug-addicted people, they just got them more doped up. Well, of course, that was the kind of stuff that Americans were like, I'm sorry, listen, we can't continue to vote for this president, Wahlanya. But his leftist goons that follow him across the states that love him are still proliferating this level of crazy in the streets, where it's looking like a zombie apocalypse in some of it. And some of these states were so glorious at some point that they're barely recognizable today from what they used to look like. And one of them, from the documentary that I watched the other day, is either Minneapolis or Minnesota, one of those two. I think they're even called the Twin Cities because maybe they're going through similar issues, right? I don't know. Are they Siamese twins? I don't know. Whatever, or identical, angasi, whatever, right? So that's what under heaven is going on quietly. And the issue is black recalcitrancy. It is the black purge. If you've seen the movie The Purge, where it is like crime is legal, or 24 hours, or getting through a nighttime, you get the plot to the movie The Purge, right? It's literally like a black purge. It's a black purge, where it is that in certain states in the US, crime is legal, but instead of it being just one night a year, it's the whole year. People are just left to be. Gangsters are running amok. Nobody is going to prison. And when then prisons are filled up, because they tend to get filled up by black people, it is apparently allegedly just harassment on the black person. And amidst the people that are punting this are strangely white folk and any other race that's not black, but and then of course entitled black people that will out here keep on bringing back the mammoth and the dodo, speaking about how it is that we were abused back then, so let us run rampant and commit crimes. Those crimes are being committed against who exactly? White Governor Newsom in California. Who are these crimes being committed against largely? That you are proliferating, and basically when you let go of criminals in California to run rampant in the streets that have almost killed people, because that random monstrosity was the random monstrosity that has been stalking me for 3 years now, okay, was let out of prison having committed attempted murder in the interest of social distancing. But there's so many other things that they're out here unleashing monsters concerning, right? And that monster, who is he largely committing crimes against? That's just my issue. Who are the criminals that you are setting free to run rampant in the streets, largely committing crimes against. In my nation, the crime rate is really high, and the crimes that are being committed against everybody. Crimes against white folk are especially exorbitant where it is that white people live near black neighborhoods like Deep Stewart near Mulder's Drift, Alex near Santa. So you will get these like crazy stories of white people being broken into and just mauled away at, daughters being raped, just a ridiculous situation, right? And their experiences are just really, really terrible. They know of people who have been murdered, etc. Their stories are being spoken about and the heinous tragedies are being hunted, and white folk are tired. However, the largest scale of massacres of people that are being just mowed to the ground are of fellow black people. Criminals are afflicting everybody, but in the black community, which is where the largest amount of crime is being committed, given that in this country there are a majority of black folk, these crimes are being committed in communities of black people, and they're being terrorized by a small number of gangsters in those communities that have basically left them at the mercy, that have left these communities at the mercy of these gangsters, of themselves. And people are too scared to do anything about it. People are too scared to essentially intervene. Police are not sufficiently responsive. There is no confidence in this country on the police, even in the slightest. Barely any apprehension, barely any correction, barely any, you get my point. And those who are dropping dead in the largest numbers, and those who are the most afflicted by all this criminality, are black people. But our stories are not as impressive upon being communicated because we are black. The other day I was listening to Chuck Holton. He is a correspondent for CBN News in the US, and I listen to his stuff a lot because he's very informative and he has quite the history, and like I said, very informative and quite the history. He was in the military or something very hectic. Okay, Chuck Holton spoke about a guy. Oh my goodness, barely any battery over here, 22%. How much battery do I have over here? 13%? What the heck? Why is battery dying so fast? It shouldn't. Anyway, I don't understand why I only have 12% battery here, because this charger is a bomb charger. Like, it tends to charge very bomb. Anyway, whatever. Let me just try and tell the story of Chuck Holton and then maybe give a break for my phone to charge over like a minute, and then go back to resume. It's like 5:11 in the morning. I didn't expect to speak this long, but it's my last video in this channel, so whatever. I'll just, share my heart, vomit my sentiments until kingdom come. Alright. Chuck Holton spoke about a South African man that is now living in Panama in the United States of America with a daughter that is a cystic fibrosis, and he was seeking people's assistance in order to enable his cause pertaining his daughter, etc. But the backstory of this guy, I remember when Chuck Holton was speaking about this man, feeling a little bit raw on some, Chuck, if you were to happen upon my story, you would probably not be so compassionate over me because I'm black. Because black people tend to have a victim mentality sometimes. But sometimes it's not even a victim mentality, it is a reality. That there is less compassion for our sorrow than for other people. And if at all that is the case, you have a prerogative as a black person to protect yourself until you find an environment that will have the sufficient protections for you, or the sufficient compassions. But when I listened to him speak the story of this man from this country, like, apparently he had been shot twice, he had his daughter kidnapped, he had his daughters kidnapped. But some like horror stories that happened to white people in this country because of just a severity of hatred, not only of white people but of correction. And I cannot say this enough. Not only do you hate correction, but you also hate white people. For what? Listen, I don't know. Okay, because it's been a minute since we came out of apartheid. But this man had his daughters kidnapped, I believe twice. He was shot at and survived. He had his house burned down. Like, he endured so much in South Africa, but he ended up leaving. So when Chuck Holton told this man's story, I was like, I'm sorry, God, for feeling raw about the fact that Chuck would never ever basically highlight my story in order to enable my cause. Because I feel so sad that being black, nobody cares that I am literally being like targeted for rape every day. The challenges that afflict at the hands of black people in this country, the whole country, are literally ravenous. But the disquiet and the misfortune is in the fact that black people, when they go through these things, are over and above enduring heinous acts of criminality ignored. So the white man who moved his whole family to the US is now being enabled by Chuck Holton. In this country, there's been harassment, a severe one at that, of Afrikaners that then ended up getting refugee status under Donald Trump. White folk got enabled, but because the massacres of white folk were highlighted and then attention was brought to them. Whereas when we get massacred, butchered, destroyed, killed, utterly decimated, it's like that's what black people go through. And so as a black person living in a culture that trusts that you're just gonna be let go, to suffocate, what do you do other than continue to scream long enough until you're the one black person that gets rescued out of 58, out of 100, out of 10,000, until you're the one rare case that gets rescued? What I'm trying to explain is that as a black person, the striving is so real, so hard, so intense that you gotta shout 10 times louder. You gotta yell 10 times harder. You gotta be that much more eloquent, that much more particular. You gotta be that much more anal with your cause and your fight. You gotta knock on a lot more doors and you gotta be shut out for a lot more times. You gotta be ignored that many more times until you finally create such a compelling case that is impossible to ignore. That listen, just you alone will get harnessed out of this mess. And so by your own righteousness you will save your own life, but neither your sons and your daughters are going to escape, just like it is written in Ezekiel 14. By your own righteousness, black person, insofar as you latch on to what makes sense, only you and you alone will get rescued. After 45 minutes some lady will come and enable your cause. What's important is that you wait there long enough for someone to finally come through, but you can't give up, you can't capitulate, you can't let yourself get taken by human traffickers, and you also can't let yourself fall under the black grain, because the black disease that is coursing through the veins is hurting everybody. But in the black community, there is no one coming for us. Everybody else gets medical responders. Everybody else gets police responders. Everybody else gets hearkened to. Everybody else gets told they're there, I'm sorry. Once the stories of other people are found on social media, once attention is highlighted on other people, it's like, oh my goodness, what are you doing to these people? But with us, you will literally scream for 11 years. That's how long I've been in this position. Till a woman is frankly facing menopause. Ship is sailing. You will sit on a rooftop for 11 years and the gangsters that have held you hostage while you cry on a rooftop, rape, laugh at the fact that, listen, no one is coming for you. I told you I'll take care of you. Your hostage taker is saying, I'll take care of you. Now let's speak about that hostage taker. That hostage taker is the bane, one of them, is the bane of America's existence. It's the bane of the right's existence in America. It is Governor Newsom's black gangsters that are set free out of American jails because apparently they're overpopulated, left to wreak havoc on earth, and now it turns out their issues are not only on American soil, but look at how I've got an American man trying to kill a South African woman, and for 3 years he's been left in Jeffela to do whatever he wants to do. 3 years. I have been stalked by a voodoo practitioner from the US ever since he got set free out of prison for 3 years. And this man is so determined in his stalking mission that he found me even after I ran away from another place. He wants to cleanse his ugly, filthy garments with me. A woman that, I just told you his rap sheet, right? I was a typical snob growing up in South African middle class, but that one day lost everything and nobody cares for me anymore. Because that's what happens in the black community. People get left out on a limb. I've never seen the inside of a jail cell. I have pursued before from a vantage point where my mom was taking me to jail to go and pursue one of her boyfriends, and my ex-boyfriend took me to jail to go and pursue one of his brothers. But I have never in and of myself gone and pursued anybody that I knew, because I've never known people into crime. I am tall and beautiful and slender. I am what in historical terms prior to my Christianity would be called, I'm what they would call like a bit of a diva. Do you understand? A snob, like in the worst way. So what I'm trying to explain to you guys is that in the black community, you don't even have to be wretched and ghetto. You could be totally gentrified and you will still endure black indiscretion. And people that are literally nowhere in your league think that you're up for grabs purely because you got found at Durban Beach in your underwear, in your swimwear, by the police, and just left in jail on the stoop of your mom's best friend until she came home at 6 p.m. Insofar as some men would just like walk past those children in that seasonally neglected situation, they will think that this is my kind of girl, even though, listen, this is a middle class child. Remember I told you about the boy in my primary school, middle income class child with means, whose parents were with means because he was in a private school with all of us, and yet nobody knew that the boy couldn't see. So even though you come from a certain family, listen, it doesn't matter. You just need to find yourself in one bad day and you will be demanded of by black folk that are not being rebuked, because the black community is complacent pertaining black indiscretion to a point where they will go and grab Yovel and Berea and destroy it, and then claim that white people hate them, that's why they warded off out of Yovel and Berea when then apartheid ended and the group areas acts were eliminated. They will claim that white folk